Have you ever looked at a satellite streaking across the sky or a race car hugging a corner and just wondered, how do we predict that? I mean, the real world is incredibly complex, right? But the secret, the thing that makes all of modern engineering possible, is a really powerful idea: simplification. So today, we're going to break down how physicists and engineers create these amazing models that make the super complex, well, predictable.
So that's the big question we're tackling. How do they actually do it? How do you take something as messy and chaotic as a plane flying through a storm and boil it down to a set of rules and equations that actually work? That's the real challenge, and that's what we're going to get into. All right, so the very first step before you even think about any math or physics is to draw a box. And no, not a literal box, but a conceptual one. You have to decide what's inside your problem and what's outside. This super simple act of just defining your boundaries, that's what we call creating a system.
So what exactly is a system? Well, it's really just the collection of things we decide we want to focus on. Think of it like you're putting an imaginary fence around the objects you care about for your problem. Everything inside that fence is your system. Everything outside is just the environment. It's how we isolate what we're trying to figure out.
And this brings us to a really basic idea: cause and effect. We call the cause an input, or if you want to get technical, an excitation. Think of it like a push or a force. This input acts on our system, and the effect? Well, that's the output, or what we call the response, which in dynamics is usually some kind of motion. It really is that simple. Something happens to the system, and the system does something in return.
Okay, I know this might still feel a little abstract, so let's ground it in a real-world example that we can stick with for a bit: an airplane flying through the sky.
Okay, so let's draw that conceptual box of ours right around this airplane. Everything that makes it an airplane, the body, the wings, the tail, the engines, all of it is now officially inside our box. It's our defined system.
So now that we have our system, what are the inputs? What are the big external forces acting on it from the outside? Well, for an airplane, there are four main ones, right? You've got thrust from the engines pushing it forward, drag from the air trying to slow it down, lift from the wings pushing it up, and of course, its own weight pulling it back down to Earth.
So, if those forces are the inputs, the causes, what are the outputs? What are the responses? Simple: the airplane's motion. But it's not just one thing. There's translation, that's just moving from point A to point B. There's rotation, the pitching up and down, the rolling side to side, and the yawing left and right. And then there are even subtler responses, like the vibration you might feel in the wings during turbulence. All of that is the output.
Okay, this is great. We've defined our system, we know the forces acting on it, and we know the kinds of motion that result. But now we have to get a little more specific. How do we actually model the airplane itself? I mean, you can't just drop a real airplane into your equations. You need a simplified, mathematical stand-in, a building block. And in the world of dynamics, it turns out we have three fundamental building blocks to choose from. We can treat any object as a particle, as a rigid body, or as a deformable solid. And trust me, the choice you make here changes everything about how you solve the problem. I think the best way to think about these three models isn't as what an object is, but as three different lenses you can look through. Each lens gives you a totally different view of the same object, and the trick is picking the right lens for the job you're trying to do. First up, we have the ultimate simplification: the particle. A particle is basically just a dot, a single point of mass. It has no size, no shape, no dimensions at all. When we model something as a particle, we're saying, hey, for this particular problem, I don't care about its size, and I definitely don't care if it's spinning. All that matters is its location in space. Where is it? That's it. Next, we level up the complexity just a bit to the rigid body. Now our object has a real size and a real shape. But, and this is a huge but, we make a major simplifying assumption: that the body does not bend or stretch or change its shape in any way, no matter how hard you push on it. With a rigid body, we suddenly have to care about two things: its location, which is its translation, and its orientation, its rotation. And this, right here, is where it all clicks into place. Let's go back to our airplane. To an air traffic controller sitting in a tower, that airplane is just a particle. It's a single dot on a radar screen. All they care about is its location, its flight path, and its altitude. But to the pilot sitting in the cockpit, no way. To her, that plane is a rigid body. Its orientation, its pitch, its roll, its yaw. That isn't just some data. That's absolutely critical to flying and landing safely. See? It's the exact same object, but two totally different jobs demand two totally different models. And finally, we get to our most realistic, and by far most complex, model, the deformable body. Here, we stop pretending things don't bend and stretch. We actually embrace the fact that they do. In fact, that bending and stretching, that deformation, is the exact thing we want to study. If you need to figure out how a wing is vibrating in heavy turbulence, the rigid assumption is totally useless. You need a deformable model for that.
And that really gets to the crucial takeaway here. Particle, rigid body, deformable body, these aren't what things are. They're models. They're powerful simplifications that let us solve incredibly difficult real-world problems, which leaves us with a final kind of mind-bending thought to chew on. If every single object in the universe, from a steel I-beam to a diamond, actually deforms at least a tiny, tiny bit when you apply a force, does a truly rigid body even exist in reality? The answer to that question tells you everything you need to know about why this is both a science and an art.